As you know, the destruction of the economy, the damage to the emotional well-being of many Australians, not just Victorians, continues. The Victorian lockdown is going to be extended. When is someone in Canberra, anyone at all, going to say to the Victorian Government, and that's using the word very loosely, government, enough is enough? Who are these left-wing experts that seem to have duped our national government? I repeat, the Professor of Theoretical Epidemiology at Oxford University, I suppose he'd know nothing, Professor Sunetra Gupta, has urged Australians to, quote, abandon its selfish and self-congratulatory lockdown tactics. Michael Levitt, he'd know nothing, he's a Nobel Prize-winning professor at Stanford University, has argued in relation to lockdowns, the level of stupidity going on here is amazing. Lockdowns are a huge mistake. As I told you earlier in the week, the Canadian Professor Doug Allen, who's done the world's first lockdown cost-benefit analysis, has argued that lockdowns, quote, may be one of the greatest peacetime policy failures in Canada's history, and that, quote, heavy lockdowns do not meaningfully reduce the number of deaths in the areas they are implemented, unquote. Why then is this lockdown strategy tolerated by the Morrison Government? Do you think if Gladys Berejiklian were the Prime Minister of Australia, she'd be silent in the face of these incompetent Victorian health and economic vandals? Coalition supporters are shaking their head. The Prime Minister was asked last week in question time by the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, quote, the current Melbourne outbreak is linked to a man who caught the virus in hotel quarantine in South Australia. Wouldn't Australians be safer if the Prime Minister built a better quarantine system, unquote. Now, amongst a lot of verbiage in reply, the Prime Minister said, unlike those opposite, I'm not going to attack the states, I'm going to thank the states. Again today in question time on the lockdown issue, he said, the Commonwealth Government seeks to work closely with the state government. Is this leading or following? Does the Prime Minister's silence mean he's thanking Victoria for the fiasco the nation now faces? Is he prepared to squander his COVID-inspired electoral dividend, he's earned it, by ignoring rank administrative mismanagement in Victoria? I see the Treasury Secretary, Stephen Kennedy, is talking about the downside risks of further lockdowns. Can we abandon the dishonesty from government that, we listen to the experts because we don't? Now we're told KPMG modelling has estimated a $125 million economic hit for each day the lockdown continues. $125 million. And Dr. Kennedy is telling Australians to get the jab as soon as possible. OK, well, why are we secretive about the number of Australians who are vaccinated? To tell us there have been 4.3 million doses is meaningless. That's all the information we've got. How many have had a single jab? How many have had a double jab? Why aren't we told? And if every corporate man and his dog, to say nothing of the big greedy pharmaceutical companies, have been roped in to implement this vaccine program, how much have they been paid for this seeming failure? How naive is the federal government to imagine that when things get tough, Labor premiers and federal Labor wouldn't go after the government? If the government in Canberra has a front foot, it might be time to get on it. Can someone shut up the Victorian Treasurer Palace who's begging for more money from Canberra? I hate the thought of individuals and businesses being punished because of the incompetence of the Victorian government. But why doesn't Canberra say, as Berejiklian would say, we won't cop lockdowns? Why doesn't the Prime Minister say, in the Parliament, to the nation, address the nation, that we're sick and tired of the failures of the Victorian government? We're sick and tired of Andrews and his sycophantic mob failing to apologise for the damage they've done, for the 800 plus lives that have been lost, for the hopeless quarantine stuff-up when they outsourced the job to their mates, for the forced unemployment of thousands. As Lyle Geyer of Essendon has brilliantly said today, the closure of decimated small businesses, thousands of children forced into ineffectual homeschooling, and the consequential associated mental stress. Lyle Geyer has written, the bereaved families unable to attend funerals, devout Christians forbidden from attending church services. One pastor, by the way, has been arrested today. I understand he has not been granted bail. I'll be looking at that tomorrow night. But Lyle goes on the 5-kilometre travel limit and the banning of solitary golf and fishing, which has been imposed without logic or empathy. Elected representatives, totally devoid, he says, of compassion, of kindness, understanding and sympathy, are not worth the inflated payments they receive, unquote. Now, if Lyle Geyer can utter these truths about an utterly discredited Victorian administration, why can't someone in Canberra? The issue is not vaccination or quarantine. The issue is how we handle both. The answer emphatically is not lockdowns. As Gladys Berejiklian has said, we have to learn to live with this thing. Or are we prepared to accept an economic cost of lockdowns of over 100 million a day, a hit to the national economy, which could be anything up to 9 billion? Are we prepared to accept this? The silence of the Morrison government suggests we are, since all we have are those people whom we elected, no matter how hopeless many of them are political rivalry so great and jealousy so intense that we can't look at the latest Berejiklian initiative. Universities have lost thousands of staff and untold billions in revenue during COVID. Large numbers of foreign students aren't allowed in. Of course, hospitality and horticulture have lost millions because they can't get workers. So what's Berejiklian doing? She's taking a proposal to the New South Wales Cabinet tonight to bring an initial tranche of international students to undergo quarantine at special student facilities, set up the system, universities fund the flights. She's already identified 4 quarantine sites. It seems that Berejiklian is on the front foot. It's time Canberra found a voice and got onto the front foot with her. The Government of Australia should be saying today that it is intolerable and unacceptable for these lockdowns to be extended. And by whatever means are available to the federal government, it should seek to make sure these lockdowns don't go ahead. There are other ways of managing 67 active cases in a population of over 6 million. And remember, only 2 in hospital, none in intensive care. We've had 1 coronavirus death in Australia this year. I'm stumped. The only feather these politicians seem to have to fly with is alarmism and fear. Daniel Andrews' sidekick Merlino is now saying Melbourne has to stay in lockdown because cases will explode and people will die. That kind of alarmism nonsense discredits totally anyone who might utter it. What are your thoughts? You're as fed up as I am, I guess. alan@skynews.com.au or the text line. We're always there to read what you have to say. 0414 000 848.